Real estate, family business, and building a legacy. It's a journey I'm navigating every day.
Both as a managing director and as a father. From making big decisions to adapting to Gen Z, industry trends, and smart investments, it's all about growth, ethics, and evolving together. Of course, there's a little fun along the way with my daughter as well. How do you see change for the business and for the industry looking forward? From your lens, from your perspective, what do you see happening in the
Very
future?
honestly, from what I've also been seeing over the last 4 or 5 years, I think technology is going to be a big game changer. And a lot of people have been talking about construction tech and prop tech, right? And I think we're still very early on. We're literally at the top of that pyramid and at the tip of that iceberg, if you may call it that, in terms of the ability and the opportunity that technology has. Like, look at what we've done on our entire construction tech, right?
Right.
Where we're using quality based progress monitoring systems integrated fully into progress monitoring systems. And if I think about where it could go, right, your design planning can happen, your customer transparency, which you want to talk about. Customers can't necessarily be at site every day because of safety reasons.
Right.
But imagine a world where they could log in onto their phone and be able to see what the progress of their home that they're putting all their life savings into.
Right.
And what you were talking about, right? 30 years more of paying that out. Imagine just that ability to see that versus it's a big black wall that they can't see behind, because also they don't understand what's actually happening in building that, right? They're not from the industry and you don't expect them to. But if we're able to find a way where you're able to use the construction technology to showcase how their home is progressing or how their commercial office or whatever the unit is
Sure.
progressing. So I think we're at a very nascent stage, and I think that technology is actually going to be the biggest game changer.
Okay.
And like we said, Gen Zs, the expectation around technology, they've grown up in that digital era. They
Right.
know no better
Right.
than they've never dealt with. And I'll say this and you laugh at me for saying this. I at least used an old like cordless phone at some point.
Right.
And I dealt with no Netflix growing up. What was on TV and on the weekend in that 30-minute slot, if you remember, I'd argue to be like, this is my 30-minute watch time.
Right.
They don't know that.
Yes.
They don't know that world. So I think technology in terms of both consumer side, in terms of fiscal discipline, in terms of driving progress, and also just efficiency and cost efficiency is going to be what we need to look at and where the change will come up. So, speaking about AI, the other thing that we're looking at very actively, and I think that's going to end up changing the way we approach the future, is the integration of AI into our understanding of the consumer. And what I mean by that, and of the customer, right? You could use AI to look at tone of voice, right? To identify happy customers, right? Or to identify unhappy customers. You can look at AI for responses to customers, because at the end of the day, we're dealing with that customer journey. They've got 3.5 years or 4 years now, even 4.5 with the longer construction duration projects, right, and the larger scale. That's such a long period for which we're answering queries. They've got different things that they want to know at different stages.
Right.
Imagine an AI layer in there which optimizes your team's efficiency.
Okay.
And responsiveness, because it's able to study all your back-end data and tell you what the customer actually needs to know. Imagine giving preemptive communications to customers saying, you asked X, we also know you may want to know Y and Z.
Wow.
So there's a lot that AI could unlock in terms of the future. When I also think about tone of voice, I think about customer sentiment.
Right.
Where you can read emails, listen in on calls, or look at call transcripts, to be able to look at what that customer journey is and where they are in terms of their emotional state with you.
Wow.
So there's a lot that you could actually do.
And so then you take, let's say you have an unhappy customer,
Yeah.
which you can tell from a tone of voice, right? And you can actually, so currently what ends up happening is you may audit one customer here, or a random sample.
Yeah.
With this, you can actually run this on every customer
All the time.
all the time and start flagging those who may need a little bit of additional support, may need to be
Yeah.
reached out to by somebody senior.
Yeah, because each
Wow.
customer is different, right? In terms of what they expect, what they want, what their fears are, what their anxieties are.
Right.
Imagine being able to read and say that, listen, this customer wants to know more about finances.
Right.
As an example, right? They're very particular about their statement of account, about their payments, and some of those aspects, right? So therefore, what you'd be able to look at is to say, okay, you know what? How can we talk to this customer about our credit rating to boost their confidence, and therefore, what's the talking point that this customer actually would need to be able to give them that confidence, which today you're reliant solely on that relationship manager's expertise to be able to do
Right.
that. Here you'll be able to do personalization, but at scale.
Wow.
So you're able to balance both, and you're able to then monitor, like you said. Imagine another customer who wants to know more about the curing, the process that you're following for curing. And I remember this. There was some customer query that I saw where a customer actually wanted to know about how we were doing the curing. And I remember thinking to myself, saying, wow, I don't think the relationship manager could tell them
Of course
that.
not. I
So,
mean, that's
because
not
that's not their knowledge base, and
Right.
that's not what they're trained for.
right.
But imagine being able to say, okay, you know what, that customer wanted to know about curing. So why don't we now go ahead and tell them, saying, okay, this is how we're looking at the waterproofing, and this is how we're looking at some of the other construction aspects
Right.
to be able to make your home a reality.
Right. Wow.
So I think the AI layer is going to transform the industry.
So it looks at past and what's happened, right? It can look at what's present,
Yeah.
and then from looking at communication, looking at trend of one individual, can also start getting into future relationship building, future
Predictive.
communication,
Yeah.
predictability.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's again, AI today is at such a nascent stage that you don't know where that world is going to go, to know the impact that it's actually going to have on the workforce, on customers, on how we do business.
Yeah.
It's
So-
it's all evolving so fast.
So while you're thinking about that, as far as the customer side is concerned, right? How does this work when it comes to the employee side?
Same thing. If you think about it, imagine being able to look at your employee sentiment, your risk of burnout, yeah, your risk of error, right? As a customer, as an employee veers towards burnout, the chances that they'll make a mistake, the chances that, even imagine a risk of quitting, right? Just from their tone of voice, just from their, if you see a change in their patterns, for an employee, there could be something happening at home,
Right.
which you may start being able to sense in their communications, and they may start bringing in some issue at home into the workplace. But imagine being able to support them through whatever life stage that they're going through,
Right.
because you're able to catch it early
You're able to
on,
sense that.
and you're able to sense it. And again, you're not dependent on their manager being a highly sensitive person or a highly empathetic person,
Right.
to being able to gauge that and provide their team member the support. Here you're able to equip that manager to support the team member.
Do you see changes in product? Like, for example, we did child centric. Do you see other similar product lines that?
I think so. And we've talked about this before as well, if you recall, where we said real estate follows hospitality in the journey.
Right.
And every time, right? Like you'd given me this anecdote, in fact, that pools came into hotels, so pools came into residential projects.
Right.
Now you're looking at concierges with hotels. You're looking at concierges with a residential
Well,
project.
it's natural, right? You go from where you live here, and this is where you go to live for a few days.
Yeah.
Right.
The aspiration comes home.
Aspiration.
Yeah.
So well said.
So-
The aspiration comes home.